Hello everyone. I wanted to discuss dimensioned realms and shadow worlds today. Um, for the sake of argument, I will explain how I see them or how I use them. Technically, realms and dimensions can be swapped, interchanged. They can mean the same thing. But first, I want to give the definition that I got off of Google for each one so we can kind of have a little understanding on dimensions. In physics and mathematical, the dimensions of a mathematical space is informatively defined as the minimum number of coordinates needed to specify any point within it. So it doesn't really have a specifics. It's just like those numbers that they use to designate a spot with coordinates, the longitude, latitude, all that. When we're talking about in a spiritual sense and we're floating around like the astral planes, um, we don't really have exact coordinates like this because it's a pretty vast area, but we can run across different uh, dimensions that we're unsure of, or we never been there before, but we got to point B from point A, which is, where we normally are, to that area. So I'm going to use dimensions when I speak as like not connected to Earth or any of the Earth realms. It's kind of like if we were in our solar system, and all the little planets are kind of connected in the little circles around the sun that we go on. I'm going to use dimensions as another galaxy or another area that's not connected within our Earth and its neighbors. So when I get started on that, y'all will understand. Realms is a kingdom or a field or domain of activity or interest. In zoology, it's a primary biographical division of Earth's surface. When I use the word realms, it's going to be um, different, I guess, kingdoms or lands or worlds that are not really on the part of Earth, but they're connected to it. They have an Earth base. They are familiar with coming back and forth from our planet or our existence to their own. Fae are one of those that we kind of interact. They understand the whole nature base and how Earth operates, and they kind of go back and forth from their realm to our realm, helping. Well, they don't really like people too much, but they help the nature, and they interact with our trees and stuff like that. So they would be considered a realm and when I discuss things. And shadow worlds. I didn't really know about shadow worlds until I was thinking about it the other day, and it just popped in my head. Um, well, actually, Chief probably is the one that spoke that to me, so I had to look it up myself. Shadow worlds is very interesting. Uh, the most common use would mean something like hidden world, hidden in the shadows. It could mean hidden by magic or by secrecy or existing in an unexpected place. So shadow worlds is actually a real thing. Um, and the best way I can describe a shadow world um, is going to be the veil for what we, spiritual wise, the veil. So I'm gonna start with that because that's gonna lead us into more conversation. All right, so shadow world, the veil. How does that even work? So the veil is exactly what its name is. It's a veil. It's still earth. It's still um on. So where were we? The veil is exactly what it is. It's a veil over the earth. Over the veil is the spiritual sense of the earth, and the physical plane obviously is the living, which is us. So it's really the same place, just in two different aspects of the same place. So it's kind of like, and you know, if anybody ever knows, people talk about shadow works, where you get to know yourself, you know, all of yourself, and you work through your good, your bad, and your ugly. It's kind of the same with the earth and the veil of the earth. So they're really the same place. And when I see it, when I do see over the veil, I see exactly the same, you know, as the living aspect of it over there. It just has like a filter to me, like more like a grayish tone filter, um, and a little bit of misty kind of stuff going on there, which water is pretty much like everywhere, on every plane, like of earth realm, so, or the earth. And so a lot of people are like, oh, I traveled, so, you know, over the veil. Oh, you know, honestly, the veil is connected to all of us, like over there, because it is part of us. It is part of being on earth, being an earthling, being in the physical living plane of existence. It's the spiritual side of it. So when we die, we go over there, and your ancestors are over there. Unless they wanted to travel around the astral planes and go somewhere else, that's where they're going to be. Um, Watching, living, interacting. That's why there's a lot of ghosts and stuff. You know, yeah, I don't know how many like investigating groups I've like seen in the last like week. I'm like, holy crap, that's a lot. Like everybody wants to investigate the ghost, but they're not that hard to find. They're everywhere. It's because they are sitting right beside us. It's just that filter in between the living and the dead, or the physical and the spiritual side. So it's not as complicated as like a lot of people make it out to be. If you're enlightened or you meditate or you try to connect to your spiritual side, most likely you're going to start seeing dead people. So seeing ghosts isn't all that rare, since, like I said, we were intertwined with them on the earth plane. So I personally don't see them as like, oh my god, see a ghost. I just see another soul that wants to communicate, whether it's living or dead. Um, so that pretty sums up the shadow world. Veil is the shadow world of Earth, which not really is a secret, and it's not really in the shadows as we don't know, but we know it's there. It's just not everybody is familiar with being able to accept it, understand it, and live with it, basically. So, let's see. Moving on, let's go to the realms. So I see the realms, like I said, connected to the earth plane, but they're not part of the earth. Like the earth and the veil are one, they kind of like branch off, or they're another area, world, realm that connects to the earth, little gateways, portals, whatever you want to call those. They can kind of come back and forth. They are familiar with Earth, the Earth plane, but they have their own little home. They have their own little world that they, can reside in. And I mentioned the Fae because everybody is familiar with the Fae, and they're like the perfect example that they come back and forth. They interact with our nature, uh, lores and stuff where they, trade off human children for their own, you know, children or beings and different things like that. So they have interacted with Earthrealm a lot. you know, um, I'm not getting into all the lore with that because that's a whole different ball game. But they are familiar. They come willingly, freely, back and forth. Um, they have their own, little world, and they do have trees and water, and it's pretty much the same as what our nature looks like. Do they have all the buildings, electronics? No. They really don't like that. They like the calm and what's the word I'm looking for? The sanctuary of nature provides. So you know, um, can they be not nice? Yeah, of course. Everything in existence has the ability to be, choose to be nice or not nice. So I wouldn't mess with them just because they're, you know, neighbors. That doesn't mean that they want to be, friendly neighbors all the time. Um, so moving on to dimensions, and I'm using dimensions as part of worlds or areas that are not connected to the earth in a spiritual sense. They are obviously a destination, so they're out there somewheres, but they're not really connected to us. Um, in the sense, like, they're familiar with Earth, Earthlings, the Veil, Fae. They're not familiar with any of this. They're living their own life. They have no doorways that should be open to come over here. I say should, and there's a reason why. Those guys can be very not friendly towards outsiders a lot of times because technically we are aliens to them. I mean, like, we're traveling astral planes. We go into this like destination that we know nothing about, and we're like, "Hey guys, what's up?" And they're like, "Holy crap, is it friendly? I don't know." I mean, a lot of times they do react in a very violent or unhealthy way for a traveling soul, because to them we are outsiders. We don't belong there. And to an extent I do agree with them. You know, they're supposed to be, in their own little makeup and their own little world, or, world, universe, whatever system. But somehow we traveling around and got lost or didn't know what we were doing, and we ended up there. And a lot of times it doesn't end well. Um, what they say, fear of the unknown is very dangerous, and we are unknown to them, they are unknown to us. So it doesn't usually work out. Nobody's like, "Hey, you come in peace." No, they're ready to, secure and protect their own world. And so, that's why when they say travel on the astral planes can be dangerous, this is why. Even traveling the realms that are connected within the earth and its domain can be dangerous. Definitely going outside of that can cause some major issues for especially beginners. Um, a lot of what people call like demonic reaction. I'm not saying that they don't have the demons and the angels. We're not getting into that whole thing. But scratches, bites, and all that. Do we normally have bad, not nice spirits that's connected to our home? Yes. But if you go traveling and asking for trouble, most likely you're coming back with a black eye. Like, get out my house. So, just throwing that out there for anybody that's trying to learn how to travel. Try to stay at least within the earth, domains and realms that are connected, that are familiar with our type of, being. Can doorways and gates, or whatever y'all want to call them, portals, be open? This kind of falls on that. A lot of times, we can open a door to the Fey world. We put out offerings. We select a nice area outside. Plant some plants that they like. They may or may not accept it, but there are possibilities to come in peace, as we say, and interact. Um, can you make a portal to a dimension of the unknown? Yes, you can. And this is where a lot of people fear, and they say, dabblers cause a lot of problems. Because the thing that comes to mind is Ouija boards. I don't personally use them, and I have nothing against whoever does, but a lot of times, younger people or unknowing people use tools, and the Ouija is perfect for example here, to communicate with the dead. If they really don't know how to communicate with the dead and they've never done it before, this leaves a whole bunch of opportunity for not only bad spirits, other domain spirits, um, other dimensional spirits. I mean, it's kind of like throwing yourself out into the astral planes, or your voice is like a beacon, and it's like, hello out there, can anybody hear me? I'm looking for grandma. And a lot of other spirits are opportunists, you know. They were like, well, they're looking for grandma and I'm bored, or I want to, cause some mayhem, mischief. I'm going to, grandma's not obviously communicating or responding, so I'm going to respond. So then you got these people that think they're talking to somebody that they know, but they obviously ain't. They're talking to something totally different. So a lot of times that can end up not good too. But the Ouija itself, the board, is a communication tool. But when you get a lot of people together, and that energy and that intent to desperately want to communicate or see or test the spirits, can you move this or whatever, you're actually feeding it energy to manifest into this world. And that is what actually becomes like the gateway, the portal, whatever. The board becomes that because of the people and their energy. I mean, if it's just sitting there and it's just wood or cardboard or whatever it is that it's made out of, it's literally just a tool. That's why I believe they say you're supposed to put the salt around it and cleanse your space, and there's actually a whole way of doing that, because people that have done this obviously have realized like the dangers in it, and have learned to take precautions, because you don't want to call something that you do not want to interact with. And obviously we don't want to really interact with outer dimensional beings, because, well, they don't belong here anyway. Um, can you flip your coin and see if you get a good or a bad, spirit, or not friendly one, whatever, just within our earth plane? Of course. So we have enough trouble within our own area to go exploring further into this astral plane. Trying to think if y'all have any more questions or anything that I missed. Let me know, and I will meditate and see if I could come up with the reasonable answer, um, perspective of everything. So this is how I see it and how I work through what I do. So if you maybe talk with somebody else and they be like, the Fey dimension, technically they're not wrong. Like I said, dimensions and realms can be swapped, but for my sake of argument, that's how I see them, since the Fae have a nice little kingdom, and Ram says kingdom. um, uh, just to throw in there, because dragons I work with, dragons do travel through the astral planes. They're not just stuck on Earth. This is for my dragon peeps. They are gatekeepers. They are portal keepers. They are most of them do try to maintain the balance between these worlds and our, plane of existence. It doesn't help, when there are a lot of humans dabbling and opening and shutting things that weren't meant to be opened or shut in that particular area. You weren't supposed to make a door there. It was supposed to be here. So, our dragons are working hard to try to keep the balance within all the universal dimensions, realms, and shadow worlds that are connected and intertwined. But, they're not, they can't be everywhere at one time, at every second of every minute. So, humans do have to take responsibility for some things they do. Do the dragons like, Earth and nature and all that? Yes, they love balance. Are they stuck here? Are they only limited to Earth plane and existence? No. There are dragons all over the universe. There are dragons all over, like, universes. So that's, how they fit into all this, is they do try to keep, the balance on many worlds, not just Earth, not just Fae, not just, you know, whatever other world you can think of off the top of my head. They do interact with these worlds to try to maintain the balance within them too. So when they say dragons are pretty wise, and they know a lot, that's because they aren't limited to just human interaction or earth nature. They can go wherever they are needed on that. So for anybody that's dealing with dragons, don't underestimate your dragon's ability to travel, understand, their knowledge. They've been around since the beginning of time, that I can assume or see so far. So they were here when things were created, when things were destroyed. They have a more understanding than any of us would ever comprehend how universes are made and worlds are created. So don't think, oh, I have a pet dragon. Please, these guys deserve respect, to the highest level of respect. And they're constantly working. I mean, around the clock. They don't exactly get a break, whether they're, maybe they got their orders or their job or their decision to teach and bond with a human, or guard a cemetery portal where the dead come and go, to, you know, making sure, working within nature, that their, you know, ecosystem is trying to be balanced out. They are working. They have a reason. They're not just fun and games like, hey, you know, I'm gonna blow some fire up somebody's butt that I don't like. And most of them don't even use that. But that's a whole nother video. Uh, Holy fire and the dragon stuff. So, I guess I rambled on enough. I hope this makes sense to y'all, because it's a lot of information off the top of my head, to try to explain how I see things work. Um, Let me know what you think. Any more questions? Uh, Maybe you have a different perspective. I mean, I'd love to hear about that. Um, Maybe I missed something. It happens. So I'll talk to y'all later.